Okay, I thought I was done. If you see me on video, I'm like wiping my eyes. Okay, I thought I was done, but my eyes they've been sensitive lately. It could be too much screen time, maybe, or the sun is also coming through at a weird angle. I love my new apartment, y'all, because out of my window, I could see the Atlanta skyline. And when the sun sets, it's beautiful. And it's one of my favorite things that I spend money on every month. I didn't even pick this apartment building or this apartment for the view. I picked it for the location. The view was a bonus that I did not know. When I was going through the tour, the person giving me the tour was like, "Oh, this view, you're going to love it." Because we couldn't see this exact apartment when I came to do my walkthrough because the people were still moving out or whatever. But he just kept saying, like, "You're going to love it. You're going to love the view." And I was like, "Okay, whatever, sir. Like, stop trying to sell me. I've already said that I was going to move here." But yes, I understand what he is saying now, especially now that there's no leaves on the trees. I can see it even better, and it's perfect. Anyway, today's question that I am going to answer is, what's the smartest thing you spent money on when you were first starting out? That is such a good question. I was just reminiscing and giggling, kicking my feet, laughing. When I go back to 2019, 2020 me, I'm like, I need a team. I was just like, I need a team. I need a VA. Like the VA was the thing. I need a VA. I did not, because I did hire said VA multiple, and it just crashed and burned. I even hired social media manager, crash and burn. Y'all, maybe that's the next episode, because I know many of you think that if you had a marketing VA or social media manager or just a VA, that your life would be so much easier, that it will be so much easier to show up online. That's just lies you tell yourself. That's not real. Okay. It's not, because especially if you're at the beginning of your business, you don't even know enough to know what you're going to tell those people to do. Like, you don't even have enough reps of creating your own content or doing stuff inside your business to be able to effectively delegate it to somebody else. Okay, but I'm going to save it. I'm going to save it for the episode. Okay, what is the smartest thing that I spent money on? I'm not going to give the answer of coaching, even though that would be my answer. I want to give something else. Like if I couldn't answer it in that way. Okay, let me say why I'm not going to answer it. It's because I get it. You probably listen to a lot of podcast episodes, and people are always trying to sell you something as like their solution is the only solution, the best solution. And if you or how I was, like, I could just figure this out by myself. Like, I don't want to give nobody no more of my money, child. Like, I just want to know. I'm going to answer for you. In 2020, I remember doing my weekly planning like I do on Sundays, and I was talking to one of my business friends. I think we are like on FaceTime or something. She's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, I gotta go and edit my podcast, because you know how I talk about that you need a long form piece of content that you put out at least once a week." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I gotta go. I gotta get my podcast episode. It's gonna be late this week. I gotta go edit it." She was like, "Why are you still editing your own episodes?" I was like, what language are you speaking right now? What do you mean? Who else is going to do it? And she's like, "Why don't you hire somebody for that?" And in my mind, y'all, honestly, I was like, I'm not far along enough. I'm not advanced enough to go hire somebody to edit my podcast, because in my brain, that costs thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to ask somebody to do something as technical as a podcast. Because in my brain, I'm like, I just jerry rig some things together. That's probably inappropriate to say, huh? I just put some things together, and I'm just making it look kind of good, but it's not that good. And she was like, "Girl, there's a whole Facebook group. Go find you one of them people in there and just see what," she's like, "just get a feel and see what their prices are." And so I did that, and I think I found someone. It had to be for like maybe $200 a month. It was something, it's like $100 or $200 a month. And I remember being like, "Oh, that's gonna be a lot. Like, that's a commitment, but I'm gonna try this out." The best decision I could have made at that point. Because let me set the scene for you of what my life looked like at that time. this is right before we went into lockdown. So this is like February of 2020. We see the news, but in no world do I think we're going to be on lockdown yet. At that time, I am working a postdoc, and that is requiring somewhere between 50 to 70 hours a week of just for real brain work. And it was the type of environment where you have to respond to your emails. It's the moment you get the email. If you wait till the next day, something's wrong. Like if there's a meeting that has to happen now, it has to happen now. You got to drop everything you're doing and you got to be on that call, or you got to come to that room. We're working with we did a lot of consulting. So we're working with these large scale like universities and companies. So it's just a lot of moving pieces. So like 50, 70 hours there. And then my business was picking up and I had about like almost like 20 one-on-one clients. Yeah, like 15, 20 one-on-one clients. Plus I still got to do all the stuff to like market the business and get the clients and all of that. So that's why my friend was so bewildered of like, girl, what are you talking about? You're editing your own podcast. And I had the nerve to be like, I'm also a YouTuber. That's another story for another day. But she was like, yeah, why, what? Go get somebody to edit that podcast. Now, I know I did my whole thing about like, you don't need a VA or a social media marketer. Let me tell you the difference here. By this point, by 2020, I had 4 years of consistently showing up and doing some form of podcast. It started out once a month and then I moved to once a week, and I had consistently been once a week. So I knew exactly what needed to happen. I knew exactly when the episode was going to come out. I knew exactly on average how long it was going to be. I knew exactly how I liked the intro to be, the conclusion, like the outro. Like I knew that process, and it was easy for me to write that down and delegate it to someone else. So when I hired this person and I already have my process and then she has a general idea of what her process looks like, it becomes easy to marry the two and for me to pass that off to her. And I cannot describe to you how freeing it felt for me to just record the episode and send it to her. I was like, this is magic. It's magic, because I got hours back in my week, valuable hours that I could just give to someone and they would just handle it. And I was like, this is great. It was so good. I was like, I need to go hire more people. And then I hired a VA and I hired the social media person and I started hiring co-coaches. I went on a hiring spree and those things crashed and burned. Why? Because the difference between the podcast editor and the co-coaches, let's say, I had a system down. I was consistent. I knew the podcast. Everything else was new. I wasn't as consistent. I didn't have as many reps or years in being consistent at showing up on social media in the way that I was showing up, or what I even wanted it to look like, or how I even knew if it was being done correctly. Hey, I was doing everything in the business and I was just showing up and like doing calls, but I didn't know my system well enough to know how to tell it to somebody else. I just knew that I was doing it. And to be truthful, I didn't have a system. I was just showing up and winging it. Like there was a curriculum, but like just whatever I wanted to do. So when it came to bringing other people into the team, I just was like, I was just so caught up in the freedom, quote unquote, that it was going to give me and the hours it was going to give me, that I didn't give myself enough time to think through. When you bring other people on to work in your business, when you hire people, number one, they're not you. So they're not going to do it the way that you do it. Number two, it is going to take much longer and more repetition to teach them how to do it in the way that you would do it. Also, keeping in mind what I said in number one is they still, even when you put all that time and energy into it, they're still not going to do it the way you would do it. And so there's a lot of checking and balances that have to happen. And if you don't have a system, if you are not clear on how you want those things to look, what the outcome is, if you don't have the capacity to meet with that person more times than you feel like you should have to meet with them, and to explain things the number of times you feel like you should have to explain it to them, then you don't need to bring nobody on. And that includes a contractor, because even though they are an expert in that skill, right? So I'm hiring a podcast editor, even though that person is the expert in editing a podcast, they need to learn how to edit my podcast though. It's because they know how to edit podcasts doesn't mean that they don't know what I like. And for them to know what I like, I have to be able to articulate that to them, both verbal and written ways. If you haven't taken the time to write out in detail, this is what I want, that's that. Some you're gonna be giving money, okay? And I wasted a lot of money on hiring people because I wasn't clear on what I wanted, and I would get frustrated at them because they was not performing or meeting my standards. That I realized, girl, you wasn't clear. You gave me mad at the people. Now that's me taking responsibility. I'm gonna be telling you, I worked with a lot of people. I'm like, you just need to hang it up. You don't need to have no business. Okay, you don't want this. Maybe I need to do. I know I keep saying another episode. Okay, that's another episode about like hiring and leading a team. I want to talk so much more about that, y'all, because I'm so tickled at my past self and tickled at like clients now. Like that's not enough to help the people. Anyway, but this person taking that episode off of my plate allowed me to be even more consistent. And because they were doing the podcast, it freed me up to like help my nervous system to show up on Instagram. The moment that person started editing my podcast, I doubled down on Instagram lives because I was terrified before then to show up on live. And by like middle of 2019 to that point in 2020, I was getting more comfortable, but it was going real slow. Okay. I was slowly showing myself on live. But when that person took over the podcast and then we went into lockdown, I found my new medium. I started going live more. It's nothing still like the rate I'm going live now, but if you were asking me in 2020, I was doing it. I was showing up on stories. I had this new puppy that I was like, don't look at me, look at the puppy. Ain't he cute? He's so cute. He's still a little terror though. He's still cute. He's a little terror now. But 2020, while we were all terrified in our houses, staring at the news, wondering when the COVID was gonna get us next, I took that as an opportunity with the more space to be like, let me go live. And business started to grow because that was the year that I went from 15,000 to 100,000. And it's because of that smart decision. I want you to hear me though. It was a smart decision because I had already put the reps in. This is not your invitation to just start hiring people because you don't know why you're hiring them. This is your invitation to be like, I'm going to put in reps. I'm going to get used to putting this blog post up. Or if you are somebody, let me talk to the people who are consistent. If you have consistently been doing a podcast, an email, even a live or whatever that looks like, and you have a routine, now it's time to go find somebody to do that routine. Because on the other side of this, I will tell you that there are some things that I needed to hire out a long time ago that I just been like, I'm not ready yet. Yes, you are. Yeah, you are. Especially if you can write it down, if you can rattle off to somebody, you do this and then you do this and then you do this and like in extreme detail, go ahead and go find you somebody because you don't need to be doing those tasks. But I have found in my experience working with people, it's like you trying to hire that out and it's not ready to be hired out yet. But there are some of you who you doing things you don't need to do and it's stopping your growth. But that is what I would say is what was the question? The best investment or the smartest thing I spent my money on when I was first starting out was a podcast editor. So simple business clients, especially as you're listening to this and you have been in since August and you got your routine down of your long form content, it's time to start looking to see, because there's different price ranges and different packages, if there is some way for you to start offloading some of those things. Now, though, we also have AI, which I still do a lot of my own editing. So let me put this in here too. AI done spoiled me because I just be like, you want me to hire more people? I want to do that because I could just click some buttons and it could happen. Now I'm going to hire people. I've hired people to click the buttons on my behalf, but I don't, a lot of the things where you would have had to go to someone at the top end of the like price range, AI is like, girl, I got it for you. Click this button. And it's going to remove those pauses and click those buttons. Click this button. It's going to add in your intro. That's what I do. And y'all get this content. I hire people for other things though. Like I got a pretty decent sized team. It's fun times. But Yeah, I'll do an episode about that. But yeah, let me know what your questions are. You can let me know in the comments or on Instagram. And if you want more support, you're ready to simplify how you're showing up in your business, especially around getting more consistent with content, being able to sign clients consistently, and having more freedom in your life, getting all of this done in less than 10 hours a week, then the Simple Business Institute is right for you. The links is definitely in the show notes, and I'm going to talk to y'all later. Bye, y'all.